on this Tuesday morning, awaiting a call from Congressman Russ Fulcher, and looking forward to chatting with him. I want him to spill the tea on the Matt Gaetz, Kevin McCarthy deal.
Yeah, I want to know that. I want to know the breakdown of the budget, the stopgap budget that they passed. So we got lots to ask.
All right, well, hopefully we have Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us from the nation's capital. Congressman, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine. Thanks, Neal. Good to talk to you.
Okay, well, great to talk with you as well. It's been a little while since we've been able to chat with you, so it's good to hear your voice. And Congressman, let's just dive right in here. There is high drama between Speaker McCarthy and Congressman Matt Gaetz, and he's just not even holding back whatsoever. What is your take as a very conservative member of Congress? But these optics are, I can't imagine people thinking this helps the Republican Party look good.
Well, it doesn't, and I know both of them reasonably well. And this is, in my view, this is not the right time, and it's not the right fight. And part of it is just what you said, where we send the optics of being dysfunctional, and it's in part because we are. But more importantly, there's a lot of really important things that are on the docket right now. We're in a short-term funding window here where the entire nation is waiting for us to pass appropriations bills and do so in a responsible way. And it's a heavy load in terms of what's on the docket. And instead of doing that, we're messing around with this vacate thing. And honestly, regardless of how it works out, it's taken up time, energy, and distractions that we just don't need right now. So I think Matt is off base in a number of ways. I think that the timing in particular is just not good.
Congressman, do you officially consider yourself part of the so-called Freedom Caucus in Congress?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm a member of the Freedom Caucus. Yeah.
Okay, so you're part of that group, and you vote with them at least probably most of the time, if not all of the time. But you feel like the strategic tactic that Matt Gaetz is employing right now is not productive or helpful.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Neal, Matt's not part of the Freedom Caucus.
He's not. Okay,
the Freedom Caucus is he's not, and this is the Freedom Caucus is not behind this. There may be I don't know 3-4 members that wind up supporting this vacate motion, but this is not a Freedom Caucus deal. In fact, I think you'll probably see a statement coming out from the chair of the Freedom Caucus to that end, probably before the end of the day. But no, this goes back to a personal issue between Matt and Kevin that dates back to January of this year, and frankly, they need to just sort this thing out instead of doing it publicly. But we have a very thin majority here. And if it weren't for this riff with just a handful of people, we would have been in a totally different position right now. We had a, quote, continuing resolution on the docket that it put the border security issue at front, mandating that happen, took all the spending back to a pre-COVID spending level, held Social Security, Medicare, Defense, and Veterans whole with the budget, separated out the Ukraine money. That was a really good continuing resolution, and because of that very small number of Republicans that would not support it, wanting something even better, we got what we got, which is another continuing resolution. But basically, it was the Democrats. Doesn't cut any spending whatsoever, nothing in there for the border, and that's what we're operating under right now. So this division is very costly, and this needs to get in the rearview mirror.
So I was going to ask that. You think that there's possibly 3, maybe 4. So if there's 4 and then Matt's vote would be 5, this is obviously not going to go anywhere, correct? Because you believe all of the other Republicans are not going to support it.
No, it very well may succeed, because if remember, you're going to have 212 Democrats that probably support it. I mean, why wouldn't they? And so if you have 212 Democrats to support and you got 5 Republicans to go along with it, there's the 217. And with the current count and a vacancy, 217 does it. So no, this this actually could succeed. I'd like to think that 4 or 5 on our side will rethink things before we actually cast this vote and we do the debate, but that's not a done deal. And if it does, I will just tell you, if it does succeed, then there is no one else that's in the queue for this. I can't think of another person that would have the 217 support necessary to take this over. And that'll put us, back grinding the gears like we did in January over a 15-vote speaker vote at just the wrong time. And so, no, it has a chance of succeeding. That's why Matt's doing it. And but it'd be very bad for the country if it does.
So, Congressman, I think we're pretty much in agreement. This is not productive for Matt Gaetz to be doing this. However, the way Matt Gaetz sees it is that there have been some broken promises. He wanted, as part of the deal, have single subject spending bills. Well, we haven't had that. And so how do you address the issue that Matt Gaetz's contention is that Kevin McCarthy hasn't kept up his end of the deal?
Well, there's a couple things, and Kevin's not been perfect throughout all of this. On the single subject issue, that's actually been my issue for ever since I've come here. I launched that bill. It's the first one that I launch every year, and that's the way we are running the appropriations right now. For the first time, potentially since either 1996 or 1988, the House is going to pass 12 independent subject appropriation bills to fund the government. And typically, and this is a legitimate complaint previously by Matt and others, myself, that the government's run with these omnibus or minibus type bills where everything is just thrown in a great big stack and you go up or down and you don't have the ability to debate and demand. Well, we're doing that now. So that's not actually a valid argument right now. I think the other argument that has got more traction that Matt and others have put on the table is how come we weren't doing this earlier? We took the month of August as a recess month. That's traditionally is what happens with Congress. You spend the month of August within your home state. We did that, and that put a lot of people behind the 8 ball when it comes to passing these bills. That's a greater concern probably is why weren't we in session doing these bills ahead of time? But the bottom line is we didn't. We're working through them now. They are single subject. That's a good thing. We are reducing the spending in these appropriation bills. That's a good thing. That hasn't happened in a long, long time in this town. I think Neal and Julie, some of us, we love home runs, and we love to, if you can always figure out some way to say no, and a lot of people do, myself included, and you're looking for that home run hit. In this town, those are far and few between. You've got to be able to take some base hits along the way. And look, if we can get a 25 to 30% cut on everything except for the Social Security, Medicare, defense, that's a huge win. And that's where we were just a few days ago. And that's an unprecedented level of cuts for federal spending. But that to me, that was a home run, but it wasn't quite good enough for just a handful. And so instead, we got nothing. And we're going back to a chaotic scenario. So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about that vote on the stopgap funding. You say it's of paramount importance and it's being put on the back burner this 45-day period. You didn't vote along with the delegation, and both Neal and I appreciate that. Can you explain why you chose to not vote for that?
Sure. There was actually 2 of them, and the first one was the one that I had explained before. It was a very good continuing resolution. It reduced spending for everything but the Social Security, Medicare, defense, vets. It took that down 25 or 30%, which is a huge cut, pre-COVID level spending, and it put the border security at the center of it. That was the vehicle to wrap all these demands around, was the border security. And it put the Ukraine money on a separate bill, so that was handled separately. That one I did support. And that one should have passed. That would have put the Republican position in a great spot with the Democrats, great spot with the Senate and the White House. But we were just a few votes short because some people wanted it all. And although that was good, it wasn't quite good enough for them. So then what happened, Julie, is the one I think you're referencing, which is right after that. It was either shut things down or it was basically go with what the Democrats wanted, which was just a continuation, no changes, no cuts, no anything. And so on that one, I said, hey, look, I'd rather shut the thing down and force things to a head and force us to go back to the table rather than just literally say, okay, for 45 days, we're not going to do anything. That sends a really bad signal to me. So I voted no on the second one for that reason.
So let's look at this deadline that is now coming up again in November. And even though this bill bought some time, keeps the paychecks going and the government in operation, we're right before Thanksgiving. You're going to be right back in the same mess and brinksmanship that goes on. What can be done now that there's a window of time to sort of avert, going to the very, very last second?
Well, you're exactly right, and we just left a conference meeting literally a few minutes ago, and that was what was brought up, Kevin. Is okay now, especially if we do this motion to vacate deal, and it were to succeed, which is possible, then that 45 days, for now 43 days, gets eaten up very, very quickly. And the Senate, by the way, is doing nothing. And I'm not throwing fault at our guys in Idaho. They're perfectly fine. But this Chuck Schumer-led Senate has done nothing. They haven't passed one appropriation bill. They've done nothing. They blessed or they signed off on the second continuing resolution that we did because it kept the government open, and they waved it on the White House. But that's it. They're doing nothing over there. And so if we avoid this vacate, then we have an extremely aggressive schedule to pass the balance of the appropriation bills. We passed about 70 to 73% of the spending in a very responsible way. And I say that as a very conservative guy with these individual bills with significant cuts. And we'll finish that out. And we'll have that. We currently on the schedule to have that done by October 24. It may take a little bit longer, but that's what we will do, and try to take this thing piece at a time. Get that to the Senate. Their Senate, it will not agree, and so then the Senate House does what's called a conference committee to iron out or try to come to compromise on their two positions on the national budget. And then we've got a shot at having things resolved by November 17th in that 45-day window when that ends. If we do this vacate deal, I don't know what because that's going to take a week or two or whatever to identify a speaker, get them elected. We cannot conduct business on the House floor without a speaker. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. We can operate in committee, but we cannot operate on the House floor without a speaker. So
Congress, that actually leads perfectly to my next question, and it's more just a technical question. Who's in charge if the speaker is vacated? Like who runs the proceedings at that point?
Well, there aren't any again on the floor in terms of my understanding is I'm no parliamentarian at the congressional level, but my understanding is the remaining leadership on the minority and majority side. So Steve Scalise on the Republican side, Hakeem Jeffries on the Democrat side. In terms of agenda, but more importantly, as I just verbally process this out loud, is I'm thinking it's the chairman of the individual germane committees, because that's the only thing that can really function is the committees. And so the chairman of the various committees will be setting the agenda for the committee work which would continue. And so that was probably the best answer to your question. But there, as I think about it, having not investigated into this in detail, since there wouldn't be any floor activity, that would be by default the actions of the the House, and that would be at the committee level. But then I got to go back to the same issue that we started the conversation with. The vacate motion puts a lot of this at risk because the speaker would be the one that conducts over a lot of this. A lot of the subpoenas, a lot of the oversight, and a lot of the execution comes through the speaker's office. And if you don't have a speaker in there, then that process gets put at risk. So once again, the timing of doing this is really not good for the effort. No matter how you slice it, the outcome is a more liberal outcome because we're forcing these proceedings to take place right now.
All right, we're talking with Congressman Russ Fulcher. Last minute here, Congressman, and I want to give you a chance to weigh in on the presidential race. Obviously, Donald Trump is the front runner, and you got a whole bunch of people hoping to cut into that lead. What is your nutshell take on it?
I think you summed it up. I think we have. I don't see at this point how Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee. I'll say on the other side, I don't see at this point how Joe Biden is the Democrat nominee because I don't think he can be.
Yeah.
There's where I think there's a lot more drama to play out. Sadly, he is not in a position where he can execute for another 4 years, and everyone knows it. They won't admit it, but they know it. And so behind closed doors, there's a scramble on the Democrat side to figure out what are we going to do. And so I think that when you get to the Democrat convention, there will be a move internally, and they'll try to make it as graceful as possible, and they'll slip someone else in at the convention is my best guess.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I said my last question. I actually have one more here. We hear lots of rumors out here in the heartland. You're in the belly of the beast. So what's the scuttlebutt in Washington, the whispers through the halls of Congress of what that might be and who might fill those positions?
Well, you've got Newsom that wants to desperately. He's playing like he doesn't, but he wants to be president so bad.
Oh, it's clear again.
His record is the most. His record is the most dismal in the nation. He's destroyed the largest state in the country, or gone a long way to doing that. If you don't believe it, take a look at the number of people coming to Idaho and Florida and other places because they're bailing out. I'll give you a flyer. I have seen a little bit of Michelle Obama traffic. I don't know anything on the inside, Neal. But I would just say, just knowing what I do, I would not be surprised if there was a last-minute eureka moment by the Democrats to nominate Michelle Obama at their convention and have Obama Uprising 2.0. Now, that's I have no inside information, but I do have maybe a little bit of political sense, and I think that would be one of the things that they would consider. Now, the other thing is if you've got Kennedy, who is making a run at an independent race, that even complicates their life more because he's polling somewhere around 15%, 15% of the Democrats. That puts them in a very, very difficult spot. You've got to come up with a lot of voter fraud to overcome 15%. And so therein lies the drama. Ultimately, although right now the Republicans are doing the very best we can to embarrass ourselves, and we're succeeding relatively well, there is a pendulum shift coming where the Democrats have got some real problems on their hands because number one is not in good shape. Number two is inept, and everybody knows it.
Well, if you start getting really worried, Congressman, just go pull a fire alarm somewhere. No comment?
Did we lose him?
Are you there, Congressman?
Oh, we must have lost him.
You cannot make this stuff up.
Oh,
no,
he's
back. You cannot make this stuff up. It is absolutely unbelievable. I was in the hallway downstairs, headed to the vote. And by the way, the Democrats had just made a motion to adjourn, and they wanted to stall this out. And so as this, quote, investigation unfolds, my guess is this will have something to do with it. They were trying to stall out that vote, and it has to do with a procedural thing that was going over in the Senate at the same time. I don't know all the detail, but this alarm goes erupting downstairs. And thankfully, I had a set of the AirPods for hands-free talking that I stuck in my ears and maneuvered my way over to the House floor, but it definitely created a commotion, and I don't. You can't make this stuff up. And apparently, it was Jamal, or at least that's what he's saying from New York, who pulled the lever. And by the way, I go over there on those doors all the time. It's really difficult to not understand that that's a fire alarm. Okay, especially when it says fire alarm on it,
yes,
and you have to lift a little piece of plastic, and you got to pull another lever to make it happen. It's not just that you don't bump into this like a light switch.
Right. Oh, Washington never fails to bring the crazy, that's for sure. Well, Congressman, always a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for your time today.
Neal, Julie, thank you. Appreciate you very much. Talk to you soon.
All right. 208-542-1079.